Hi, welcome to another Flashback Friday. I think we've got a very fun one for you today, and it's kind of a celebration because the year 2020 marks the 40th anniversary of the film that inspired this show, and I'm talking about Xanadu, the 1980 film musical with Olivia Newton-John. But let's back up a minute. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, movie musicals were in decline, and the big studios were being dismantled because it seemed that audiences wanted more realistic kinds of films that were shot on location. But then in 1978, TV sitcom star John Travolta made a huge splash with Saturday Night Fever, which was an R rated drama about teenagers, but it had wonderful dance sequences because it showed them letting off steam in a Brooklyn discotheque. And the soundtrack album by the Bee Gees went through the roof. So the next year, they brought Travolta back and paired him up with Olivia Newton-John, the Australian pop star, for the film Grease, and it became the most financially successful movie musical of all time. So producers naturally assumed there was gold in them thar hills, so they continued to try to pursue the trend of musicals about teenagers. 1979 was the year that roller disco showed up. So movie producers started scrambling to come up with a movie about roller disco. One quick one came out, Skate Town, USA, done inexpensively, but still a flop. If you see it, one of the supporting characters is played by the unknown Patrick Swayze. Same year, another flop movie, Roller Boogie, starring Linda Blair, who had been in The Exorcist. But there was great hope for the third roller disco movie that was in preparation because this one starred Olivia Newton-John, and you knew the songs would have to be better. In fact, she got her own personal songwriter, John Ferrer, to create half the score, and the other songs were created by the British symphonic rock group Electric Light Orchestra. They got the terrific choreographer Kenny Ortega to come on board. He would later have another flop movie, Newsies, that turned into a Broadway smash, along with his other hits, Dirty Dancin', Hocus Pocus, and the High School Musical franchise. They tried to get John Travolta to come back as Olivia Newton-John's leading man, but he wasn't interested. So the producer Lawrence Gordon got a young man who had made a big splash the year before in a film called The Warriors. But he was neither a singer nor a dancer, although he was charismatic, Michael Beck. Michael Beck would later say that Xanadu the movie set his career back a decade. But anyway, he was the leading man, and they also brought on board Gene Kelly, Hollywood icon. This would be his last musical film role, to play a club owner named Danny McGuire. Now it's interesting, in 1944, in the film Covergirl, Gene Kelly had played a club owner named Danny McGuire, spelled MC capital Guire. In Xanadu, he plays a former club owner named Danny McGuire, spelled Maguire. I don't know if they changed the spelling to avoid legal issues or if they just didn't recognize how it was spelled in Covergirl. The leading lady in Covergirl in 1944 had been Rita Hayworth, and another of her movies, 1947, Down to Earth, had a suspiciously familiar plot. It was about a goddess who comes to Earth to help a young mortal put on a show, but she's not supposed to fall in love with him. All of that shows up in Xanadu, even though they never gave any credit. Well, anyway, there were 6 writers coming and going from Xanadu. And when it opened, even though there were big expectations for the film, it got terrible reviews. Still, 5 of its songs made the top 40 hit parade, and the soundtrack album stayed at the top of the charts for 2 years. Even today, the film, despite its failure, has not gone away. It has quite a cult following, and there's a Facebook page for it that is maintained, and other websites that analyze Xanadu's songs and mythology. Even so, I was really surprised to hear in 2007 it was being turned into a Broadway musical. I thought, oh my gosh, they've turned all the good movies into musicals, and now they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. But devilishly clever playwright Douglas Carter Beane had a real handle on this material, and he turned it into something unique. He managed to make fun of the original film and the era, but wrap it in a nice kind of gentle nostalgia. When it opened on Broadway, all the critics were charmed, even the most cynical ones, and it had a successful run of 513 performances, and because they had budgeted it very smartly with a cast of only 10, it made its money back and then went on tour. We were excited to get the rights in 2011, but of course we do bigger shows here, and we have a resident performing company that's with us all summer, and we try to keep them busy. Also, if we find some slots for some local talented teens, that's all to the good. So our cast size for Xanadu was 30. Plus, there were 16 spots on stage that audience members were invited to fill at each performance. We cast a lot of it from our resident company, including our leading lady, Emmeline Meckler, who was serving her fourth summer with us before she was going to make the move to New York. And right before we started rehearsals, she got the news that she had been hired for the upcoming Broadway revival of Evita, which she went into right at the end of her summer with us. Opposite her were two Broadway leading men, Josh Sassanella as Sonny and Kevin Morrow as Danny Maguire. In the cast also hilarious performances by Betty O and Patty Reeder as two excessively jealous goddesses. The sets were by Robert A. Kovach, and they pushed us toward more projections than we had ever used before, which was really helped by David Neville's lighting. The show was directed and choreographed by Roger Castellano, with musical direction by Thomas W. Douglas, assisted by Jesse Workington. The costumes were by Tia Torchia, the hair and wigs by Elena Sellers, the props by Ray Wetmore, and the sound by David Meal. We really had a wonderful time with this. This resident company was unusually talented. At least a dozen of them have gone on to really nice Broadway careers since they spent this summer with us. And if you look for a goddess in an orange dress, you'll see Erin Clemens, that we're seeing a lot of these days in the Hamilton discussion with Julius Thomas and in her wonderful solo concert that's now airing as part of Music Theater Wichita's summer offerings online. So here are some clips from Xanadu. If you will just click on the YouTube link, I think you'll have a wonderful time. Get out your skates and your spandex. Here are some highlights from Xanadu.